Okay. Okay. I know I can always count on you for that one.
There we go. Sorry, Matt, you're good.
Here we go. Now everyone can hear me, right? Cool. Okay, so yeah, we're going to talk about the Beyond the Bet economics of gambling curriculum. Like I said, throw any questions you have into the chat at any time, and let's get going. So, a little bit about me. I am the Associate Director for the Nebraska Council on Economic Education. We are a nonprofit that is housed inside of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, but we are not funded by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We are our own separate little nonprofit inside of the business college. I'm a former high school teacher. So I did 13 years of high school teaching in Omaha, Nebraska, and I am the co-author of the Beyond the Bet curriculum. And I've co-authored other curriculums and stuff like that for economics and personal finance. And I always have on there, I'm a graduate. I have a master's degree in economics from the University of Delaware. So if there's anybody from Delaware out there, hello to the Blue Hens out there. All right, so a little bit about the curriculum, how this whole process goes down. So a lot of people don't understand like how long of a process curriculum writing can be. It's a really painful process at times. So the team, we had a project lead that was Dr. Jennifer Davidson, who is the president of the Nebraska Council on Economic Education, but she's also a professor of practice in the economics department. Our co-authors were Dr. Jamie Wagner, who is at the University of Nebraska at Omaha and is our UNO Center Director, and Dr. Chris Cannon, who works for the Georgia Council on Economic Education, and then myself. Okay. It is 3 lessons in the curriculum. You could do all three. You can pick one out. They're not meant to be, you have to do this one and then this one and then this one. They are all different topics and you can do them, all together. You can do them separate, however you want to do them. The first lesson is identifying problem gambling. So this lesson is going to be more about like, when does gambling become problem gambling? It's going to help students define gambling, which is something that throughout the process of writing this curriculum, we talked about quite a bit, was defining gambling. And then it's going to have some, statistics, kind of a good introductory lesson. We also have a lesson on sports betting, which is going to go into the incentive of sports betting, kind of the problems with sports betting. It's going to go into some of the psychology with sports betting. And then we also have one about risk, which is more of like a probability lesson, which really gets into kind of some of the math when it comes to gambling. So the funders were the Nebraska Commission on Problem Gambling. They funded this project. They asked us to create this curriculum, and we were more than happy to do it. I will say, when we were first asked to do this, I was like, I don't know how popular this curriculum is going to be. And I've done this presentation and like the gambling lessons more than I've done almost any other topic for high school students or for high school teachers or whoever it may be. The lessons are hosted online by the St. Louis Federal Reserve. So they have an education wing, and they were nice enough to take our curriculum, send their graphic designers on it and stuff like that, and kind of put it into their curriculum. So it's available to every teacher in America at no cost. Anybody can go on the Federal Reserve website and access this curriculum, and it is of no cost to them to do so. All of our lessons are active learning. That's one thing that we cannot do without. And all of them teach the dangers of gambling. Okay. That's why we're on a separate Zoom link, is because they are active lessons and it would be silly just to talk about them. So we're going to get into some groups and do some of the lessons together, because, that's just how we function at the Nebraska Council on Economic Education. I'm not just going to talk to you. We're actually going to do some of the lessons. So gets a little bit more into the nitty gritty here of like what these lessons look like. We have a very specific process that is nationally kind of normed among a lot of people that write lessons of what needs to be in a lesson. And so they went through a very rigorous process of being created. The project life cycle, we started with a group brainstorming session where we tried to figure out, what is it that we need to include? What are the lessons that we should offer? We wrote a draft of each of our lessons. Then we sent it to peer review to be reviewed by the other authors. Then we did a second draft. And then we usually do a pilot of the lesson with somebody. The picture that you see on the screen is my sports betting lesson, and I'm doing that at a high school here in Omaha. Just trying out the lesson, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and seeing if students will actually respond to it. Because I can write like a million lessons, but if I don't do them with students, like I don't know if they actually work or not. Then we send it to the editor. Then we do another draft, and then we send it to teachers to pilot them. So we have a wonderful list of teachers in Nebraska who we work with quite often. And so we sent our lessons to Valentine, Nebraska, Arlington, Nebraska, and then Lincoln, Nebraska. And these teachers do the lessons in their entirety in the classroom, and then they fill out a survey for us, and they give us all these suggestions. And we do pay the teachers for doing this. Feedback comes back to us. Then we go through the fourth draft of the lessons, and then we get to the final product, okay, which is what you're about to see. And we do submit our curriculum for curriculum awards so they can be nationally reviewed. And we were lucky enough, like I said, to receive the silver award through the National Association of Economic Educators. All right. So today's plan, we've already got the pleasantries out of the way. I've done a really long introduction. And now we're going to actually get into some of the lessons here. We'll do a quick demo of the problem gambling lesson. We'll do a quick demo of the risk lesson. And then I'll talk about the sports betting lesson only because it's a very, very active lesson. And you probably don't have like a bag of 50 to crumpled paper balls anywhere near you to be able to do that lesson in your office right now. So the first lesson we'll go over is the identifying problem gambling lesson. This lesson was probably at the heart of all of the other lessons that we created, mainly because it got us really thinking about what is gambling? Like what activities actually fall into this? And it became something that we kept coming back to every single lesson. So this lesson starts with a fun activity about statistics that students can do. There's a couple ways that you can do this with people in person. You could give them a pack that has all the cards. So there's 15 number cards and there's 15 statement cards. And you can mix them all up, put them in a bag, give them to a group, and they have to match them. That's one way that you can do it. And that's the way that I've done mostly because I work with larger groups usually. Another way that you can do it is to give each student one of the cards and have them find their match. So really, it's up to you how you want to do it. It just depends on the size of the group you're working with, how interactive they're going to be. It's a good like icebreaker activity to get people meeting each other if you're doing like a workshop or something like that with it. But they're just statement cards and number cards just to get people to wrap their head around some of the numbers involved here with gambling. So we're just going to look at the answers and then we'll have a quick discussion over the numbers here. So here are the answers that go with the activity. The average age problem gambler started gambling is 10 years old. Okay, so they would have to connect the number 10 to that stat. Okay. We also have the number of states where some form of gambling is legal at 48. Okay, the average dollar amount lost by a gambler in a year, $400. The number of tribal casinos, 525. We have the square footage of the largest casino in the US, 600,000. The dollar amount of the single biggest craps bet in Vegas history. And so they continue to go through these and they just have to connect them with the stat with the actual number. So this is, kind of the first part of the lesson here, and I won't go through all of them because that would take a lot of our very precious time. Okay. So then you ask the students, what did you learn? What's your biggest takeaway? Okay. And a lot of times when I've done the activity, the age of like problem gamblers, like when they started is a really big one. Like that's one that like jumps out to people like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe they're starting at 10 years old. And some of the the largest bets put on, how much like is bet on the Super Bowl, like those things really stick out to people. And then we talk to them about opportunity costs. We are the Nebraska Council on Economic Education. We are trying to find the economics in everything. And opportunity cost is something that we focus on quite often. And that's, if you're doing something, that means you're not doing something else. That means there's something else you could have been doing. And when we think about gambling, the opportunity cost often comes down to you're spending this on gambling. What could you have been spending that money on or that time on or whatever it may be? Okay. So if you're putting your resources towards this, where could those resources have gone? And that's kind of the topic that we like to talk about. So we're going to put you in groups for the first time here, and we're going to have you look at this activity here. And this sheet that you see on the screen right now is not it's not an answer key or anything like that. Like these are not the answers to this. But basically what you're looking at is an activity called Is It Gambling? And students have to look at these 10 different activities and decide, yes, that's absolutely gambling. No, that's not gambling, or maybe somewhere in the middle. And in economics, we're big fans of what's in the middle. We're big marginal thinkers. We love to think about, okay, it's often not yes or no, it's somewhere in the middle. Okay. So that's kind of what they have students do here. So I'm going to have you go into groups, but before you do, I'm going to give you the link to this. This is a Google Drive. It should just take you to a PDF file. I have it access so everybody can get to it. Okay, so I'm gonna put that in the chat right there that you can pull up this sheet. Okay, so make sure you click on that link before you go to your breakout room because I think I can send it to all the breakout rooms or John can, but if you have it right now, you won't have to worry about that. So in your group, we're going to put you into groups of like 5 or 6. You're going to go through these 10 activities and decide, are they gambling? Are they not gambling? And really think about the discussion you have while you're doing the activity, okay? So John, can you send them into groups at this time to their breakout rooms?
All right, they should be going in there. Yep.
Perfect.
I think the link is, let's see.
And if we need to copy and paste it back in there, we can.
Yeah.
I think you can send it to everybody.
Is that under broadcast, you think?
I think so, yeah. I think you can broadcast the link to everybody from
Okay.
your side.
Breakout rooms are working, by the way.
Okay. Sent the link to everybody.
Perfect. Cool.
All right. How long do you want to give them in the room?
We'll give them about 5 minutes, probably,
Okay.
and they can talk about it.
All right.
All about
Perfect.
Perfect. So yeah, like 123 or so.
weather.
Mhm.
How you guys want to do that? Grab a piece of paper. I can take some notes here. So, good there. You're welcome. I should act like sometimes I'm supposed to be sponsoring the thing. I should act like I'm doing something too. Um. So, I
Nice.
go ahead and start with question 1 here. Does everybody have it pulled up? So paying $1 for a cakewalk at a fair, winner gets a cake. Kind of hard because we don't have, like, we can't like actually like put a tax on there, but I didn't get that question there. So. What do y'all think?
Whoops, I missed it.
Yeah, we
missed a direct message. Wanted to know how or would there be any changes or anything if they were to do this in a college classroom?
what you say on that.
I would say that all of them would not need any changes.
Okay, just as I forgot to ask you before popping everybody in.
Yeah,
So
no problem. I wouldn't. I'm trying to think right now, and I wouldn't change anything.
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And then can you put the St. Louis link in the off your PowerPoint into the chat as well for the lessons
Yep. I have
there.
that link. Where is
Sorry,
it?
those are the two directs I got. So
No problem.
man, I gotta pay attention better. Oopsie.
It's hard to do both at the same time.
Give them a 2-minute warning.
Yep.
Do you need any data or anything like that from the presentation? How many people?
How
That
many
kind of stuff.
people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I'll just need the people or like just the how many.
Okay. Not locations or different types of where they're from.
Probably not.
Okay. I can totally do that.
Thank you.
Yep. Give them their 2-minute warning. Where's the bet on the football game when I hear someone talking about that?
Number 4.
Oh crap. Gonna knock on the door and be like, hey, you need to speed this up.
We can bring them back in.
Okay, closing rooms now.
Yep.
All right, they got a 60-second countdown.
Perfect. All right. Hopefully everybody's coming back in. Looks like we got about half back in.
10 seconds until auto closing all the rooms. So
The conversation was just that good. I'll take it.
everyone should be back.
Okay.
They're coming in.
Awesome. I see. Wonderful. So hopefully you had some good conversations. I know you probably weren't able to get through the whole sheet, but that's okay. But hopefully you had some good conversations. And this really gets to what I've been talking about, really like, is it gambling was really one of the hardest questions that we ran into during this curriculum. So if you want to put in the chat, like, what were the numbers that like were the hardest to decide? Anyone want to give an example in the chat? Like, what was the hardest one to like, is it gambling? Is it not? Like, used car and major surgery? Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. The cakewalk? Absolutely. Yep. Betting on a test score, lottery tickets. Yep. Yeah, cake, candy, the non-financial reward ones. Yeah, great. Yep. So when you do this one with students, you'll have them work on the activity, get it all done, and then basically what we do is we have everybody stand up, and then you read off a few examples, and they have to go to one side of the room if it's not gambling, the other side of the room if it's definitely gambling, or somewhere in the middle, and then you have people share out. And it's usually not super cut and dry. There are a few, obviously, where everybody goes to one side. But then there's some where people are, in the middle, especially like the surgery, the used car, um, playing bingo at the retirement home, like stuff like that. Like some of those become a little bit more discussion based. Number 10 gets a little bit, because we're talking about Bitcoin, but we're talking about expecting an increase tomorrow, which is certainly not what we usually do with investments. And that's another area where people get a little bit, if we were to put just on there, like buying a stock on the stock market, um, that's another conversation that people always are having with us as well. Is like the stock market, is that gambling? And so this activity really gets people to have that conversation of, is it gambling? Is it not gambling? And I know people talk about the normalized ones like the cakewalk and things like that. I literally 2 hours ago was presenting at a conference for teachers of career education, and I was walking around the conference area, and there was a split the pot. Like there was literally signs up everywhere to buy your tickets for split the pot, and it's like, people don't often realize that that is gambling. I had a student at one of the ones that I gave who said, my parents don't see it as gambling, they just see it as a donation to the school or whatever. And I said, yeah, like would they donate it though otherwise? Like, why don't they just give the church the money or the school the money or whatever it may be? Like, does there have to be an incentive? And so it usually leads to some pretty good conversations with students who, depending on the school district they're in, depending on the school they're in, there might be a lot of gambling style activities going on inside the school. So, all right. Then we get into definitions. This is the definition that the Nebraska Commission on Problem Gambling provided. We wanted a definition that we made sure that everybody used in every single lesson, because I think one of the worst things that we could do is have inconsistency with the definition across the different lessons. And so we argued about it so much that we just asked David, we're like, hey, send us what your definition is. That way we're all using it. Okay. And that's kind of what you see here. Then the lesson goes into this thing called, is it a problem?
Yeah.
And it gives you a certain person, and it says, it gives you kind of a little background on the person. And then it starts to ask you, okay, does she have a problem? Is it a problem gambling situation based off this? And then you keep revealing more statements about the person and deciding whether it's problem gambling. And it really helps students see, like, okay, here are some of the signs they can look for that this becomes problem gambling. So how this is meant to go is you give the students this sheet here on the left, and then on your presentation, you're revealing number one, then you're revealing number two, then you're revealing number three, then you're revealing number four. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I can't really do that, obviously, with a large group right now, but does that make sense? I hope. Yeah, cool. And so let's just start with Monique here. We're just going to do Monique real quick. So it says Monique plays bingo every Tuesday night with some of her sorority sisters. She spends around $25 on bingo cards each week, about $100 a month. The bingo hall also sells raffle tickets during the bingo game. Several nights she has spent an additional $30 on raffle tickets, but this is rare. This is the only gambling that Monique does. And it says, do you feel like Monique has a problem based on the statement above? And students will obviously answer that. Can anyone guess what the number one question we get with Monique is right off the bat? What do we not know about Monique that people always ask? You can guess it in the chat's fine. Can anyone guess what we don't know about Monique that people always ask? Yes, good job, Ken. How much her income is, right? So, like, based on the information we have, it's probably likely does not have a problem with gambling, but we don't know her income as well. Okay. So then it gets into further statements. Okay. Number one, Monique has started spending more on raffle tickets, increasing from the occasional 30 to consistently buying them each week, doubling her usual spending on bingo nights. Okay. Does that now indicate that maybe she has a problem with gambling? Again, we don't know how much income she has, so students might answer in a variety of ways. Number two, Monique has borrowed money from her friends to cover her bingo expenses or has had to cut back on essential expenses like grocery or bills to continue her bingo habit. And this is where students now, the red flag is waving all over the place. And, this is where they're like, oh my gosh, okay, yes. They understand, hopefully, that borrowing money to cover gambling is a really, big red flag. Monique frequently talks about bingo, thinks about it throughout the week, looks forward to Tuesday nights to the point where it affects her focus on work or school. And then she feels anxious or irritable if she misses a night. Okay. And so it goes through this for 4 different people with the students. And there is a teacher discussion guide to go with it that helps the teacher as well kind of talk to it talk about it with the participants. But so this is that identifying problem gambling, is it a problem? We also have Lawrence. Okay. Lawrence, similar situation. Lawrence's favorite time of year is football season. Lawrence cannot wait to get in his play in his 4 fantasy football leagues. In a couple of leagues, Lawrence must pay a $250 entry fee. The other 2 leagues don't have any entry fee. In addition, he's been known to bet up to $500 on a game winner and other prop bets. Okay. Lawrence has a relatively high-paying job where his take-home pay is $6,000 a month. Okay. So now the students as Lawrence have a problem. And I will say, with talking to high school students, fantasy football is certainly one area where they're doing it and they don't think it's gambling. And so that was kind of an eye-opener for both me when I started going into the classrooms, but also for the students. Like, oh boy, I am doing these activities. I am, like bracket challenges or whatever it may be. Okay. The next lesson goes into probability. It's the weighing gambling risks. And it starts with a game. Okay. And we're gonna try to play the game. It's a little harder and less delicious because when you do it in person, you need to get the little fun-sized bags of M&Ms. Like the brown bag fun-sized bag of M&Ms for your students? Yes, Allison, it is. I put the link to it in there. I have the link at the end. It's open, no cost. Take it, use it, please. And so you're going to put the students or the activity people into groups of 3 to 4. They're going to take turns pulling an M&M from the bag and moving on to the next person. They pull the M&M blindly, no looking. Okay. The second the selected M&M is going to represent the money that they win or lose. And there's a ledger on top, and it looks like this, that tells you how much you can gain or lose with each color. Okay. There is a ledger that they'll fill out as they're all going. If you go negative, you keep track of your negative. Okay. And you only, you can build back up, you can be in the negative, whatever it may be. Okay. Your goal is to get as much money as you can during the game, but at any point you can stop. Okay. So Price is Right style, you can stop at any time and stick with what you have. Once you stop, you're out. Okay. And the teacher will call time when it's over. Okay. So here are the payouts. If you get a brown M&M, you get $0. If you get a blue M&M, you get $20. If you get an orange M&M, you lose $10. If you get a yellow M&M, you get $100. If you get a green M&M, you lose 40. If you get a red M&M, you lose 60. Okay. So here is a color wheel that we're going to use to do this in our little groups. Okay. So I'm putting it in the chat right now, and John can send it when we get started. This is literally just a spinning wheel to show you, like, to pick M&Ms. I'm sorry I don't have M&Ms to send to all of you. It's really fun with the M&Ms, though, I must say. And then we also have the game, the little sheet to, track your winnings or whatever it may be. Okay. So just real quickly, we're going to send you into breakout rooms again. Go through a few rounds and kind of see how the game goes, and let's see who wins the most money in your breakout room. Okay. So go ahead, have those 2 links on you. I'll have John send them out again, and play the game, the M&M game in your little groups. So what'll happen is somebody will share their screen, and you just keep spinning the wheel.
All right, rooms are open. Sending links now.
Perfect. And remind them that somebody needs to share their screen of the wheel,
Okay.
or however they want to do it.
Yep. And message, don't forget, have someone's
Share the spinning wheel so that everybody can see. Okay. So we'll just let them play that for like 3 minutes or something like that, not too long.
Yeah.
Because then I'll just wrap up. I think the good thing and the bad thing about these lessons is they're really hard to do via Zoom, but
yeah, but just having the them able to test it is the
Yeah,
gets them.
absolutely. Like they're very active lessons. It's just, you can tell them 2 minutes and then we'll,
Give them 2 minute warning. Got it.
yep. Can't have forever, unfortunately.
2 minute warnings out. See,
Cool.
it's at 1:40. So all right, I'm gonna give them the minute warning.
Sounds good.
All right, closing rooms, 60 seconds.
Cool.
So I gotta yell the order out, and that guy hears it. And then look at me on the screen when they got it all on the board, just let the neighborhood know. McDonald's drive-thru.
Let's see. 16.
All right. It looks like we got some people coming back in here.
Got a 10-second.
All right. Cool. All right, looks like we're coming back in. So in person, this activity, obviously, you're going to have actual M&Ms. It'll be loud, it'll be exciting. The kids, people, students, activity members, whoever get really into it. And then what you'll do is the lesson gets into the house edge. And we don't have time to get too much into it, but it helps. It actually does the math with the students to figure out the house edge in the M&M game. And then it goes over the house edge of it goes over the house edge of, different casino games and things like that. And the students have all the names and they have to try to put themselves into order from which ones have the largest house edge to the lowest house edge. Just trying to get into the probability part, the math part, talking about, oh no. So that's where that lesson goes from there, is it goes into the house edge. I'm gonna quickly go over the sports betting lesson and just tell you what it looks like because there's no way for me to do this one. I will say the great thing about these lessons is that they're really hard to do over Zoom, which is, I think, a good thing because they're very interactive. They're very, meant to be done in person. So I'm doing the best I can, but in person, all of them are extremely engaging. In the sports betting lesson, okay, this one starts with a video, and I'm not going to play the video for you, but basically what you do is you have this playing when the students come in or when your activity members come in, whatever group you're doing it for. And it's a video that's just improbable endings to sporting events. Okay, it's 9 minutes long. You can play it for as long as you want, as short as you want. Just have it playing when the people are coming in. And then I ask them two simple questions. Why do people enjoy watching sports, and what emotions do you feel while watching the video? And it really gets into, your students will answer in so many different ways. The emotions, they'll talk about, they feel bad for some of the people in the video. They feel, excited. They feel anxious. They feel all sorts of different things. And it really gets into that psychology of like how they're feeling in this area. In this activity, you're going to need volunteers, and they're going to need to be, they'll have a lot of fun, but you need volunteers. I will say, I love doing this lesson at high schools and colleges because there is always a boy who is very confident in himself who gets humbled very quickly doing this one. So you're going to need 5 volunteers, depending on how many of the games you're doing. If you're doing all 5 games, you need 5 volunteers. Okay. And what happens is the people that are in the crowd are going to get this sheet right here. And they're going to have to guess for each activity how many the person can do in 30 seconds. So for basketball, they're going to have to guess the number of baskets they can make. For football, how many times they hit the target. For baseball, the number of times they hit the ball over the desk. For track, the number of times they can touch the chairs that they're running in between. And for soccer, the number of times they can kick the ball through chair legs. Okay. And they're going to fill out their guesses. Okay. Here's what all the sports look like. Okay. The basketball one, we're shooting into a trash can. Okay. You can set the trash cans wherever you want. The trash can can be as big or as little as you want. It doesn't matter. Okay. Because we're not looking for them to be amazing at it or bad at it. We're just getting a number. Okay. For football, you pick something on the wall and they have to just keep hitting it with a ball. For baseball, they stick their arm out and they're actually going to hit the ball. Like somebody's going to throw it and they're going to try to hit it a certain area. Track, they're running in between 2 chairs. Okay. And then soccer, they're kicking it between chair legs. So hopefully with these visuals, you kind of get an idea of what they look like. They're really, really fun. So you have them do the activity, and then you actually have them do it again. So there's a round 1 and then a round 2. You have them do the activity, they guess, and then you're like, you know what? We're going to have them do it again. Okay. And you say, everything's the same. The ball hasn't changed. The room hasn't changed. There's no wind in here. The distance is the same. You've already seen them do it once. It's a sure thing. Tell me how many they're going to do the second time. And then you have them do it again, and you have the athlete do it again. And I would say I've done this activity countless amount of times. And the amount of kids that get it right on the first or the second time, it does not matter, is less than 10%. Okay. And it's a good visual for the classroom to see, I can't predict these things. Like I can't predict what's going to happen. Even when I have all the information, I can't predict it. Okay. And then you're going to get into talking about sports betting. And I will say sports betting is the one where the high school kids especially realize that they are betting and they didn't think they were before. So we talk about fantasy sports, bracket challenges, the squares. I don't know if anyone's ever seen these. It seems like every my little league baseball team in America has a squares going on all the time. But yeah, like they are all like, yeah, I sold squares for my baseball team. I'm like, yeah, that's gambling. And they're like, oh, so there's a lot of aha moments in the sports betting lesson. Then we get into the question again, what is gambling? We give the definition that we already have before. And then we ask them, is what we did today gambling? And you'll get a good variety there as well. And then we get to talking about the incentive, the psychology of it. And incentives play a huge factor in sports. So we talk about some stories of gambling. We give them some stats. We all that kind of stuff. Mike, I'm getting to be the same way, and I wouldn't have been that person, 3 or 4 months ago. So we get into some stories about problem gambling with sports betting and things like that. And then we have them get into groups that actually look at sports betting in the news. And the thing I try to drive home with the students is these people that you are betting on are human beings, and they have incentives at play too. So you're a human being, you're having a hard time predicting something. These people that you're betting on are also human beings and they have incentives. And so I have the story of Jonte Porter, who, if you don't know who that is, he was an NBA player who his brother made a parlay bet and won a bunch of money because he actually took himself out of a game so they would hit the bet right. He's banned from the NBA for life. The referee in the NBA who adjusted their different outcomes, Ivan Toney, he's a famous Premier League soccer player who was accused, he was actually betting on Premier League games. And then the famous White Sox, obviously, of Field of Dreams fame. The sumo wrestlers one. I don't know if anyone knows the sumo wrestling story. It's a freakonomics thing. So obviously, as an economics person, I'm obsessed with it. But basically, the sumo wrestlers were throwing matches um, to like help certain people or hurt certain people in the sumo culture. So in this little discussion, they talk about what incentive did the player have to change the outcome? How do they make you feel about sports betting? Can you predict sports when it comes to betting? Because when you talk to students, they often say that they don't think they can predict like a poker outcome or a slot machine, but they think that they're smart enough to do sports betting. And this is trying to show them that no, you're absolutely not. Um, and that there's so many different incentives at play when it comes to this. All right. That was quick, I know. I apologize. So the curriculum is hosted on the Federal Reserve. I put the link in, but I'll put it in again because I'll share this curriculum with anybody and everybody who's willing to listen. The curriculum is hosted by the St. Louis Fed. It's called Beyond the Bet, the Economics of Gambling. And it's those three lessons. You get both the lesson, all the materials that you need, and you get a PowerPoint to go with it that's totally editable. You can take the PowerPoint and edit it however you would like to make it work for you. And so that's the lesson. I will say too, if you are in a state that has a council on economic education, you might want to reach out to them. They might be willing to come present this for you in your group to students, to teachers, to community members.